easy it'll become to unblock these blockages. So how we're going to do this is it's going to be interactive. And what that means is you're going to do the talking, I'm going to do the listening. So be prepared for questions fired at you. And what you need to do is you'll need to write. So when we go through the different obstacles, what I need to do is write the ones that affect you personally. Now it's not like a school exam where you copy the next person. This is the actual session where you don't copy the next person, because this is your own problems, not the other person's. So when we're going through, I'm going to ask you the different sins, the different things that may be obstacles, and I want you to think, right, what affects me? Then just write it. You don't have to write it as a full essay, just a little note form that you'll understand for yourself. So if it's something you can't solve yourself, then at least when you see those stars, then you can see them, which you'll have an opportunity to see them, and at least you can solve the problem with them and get some sort of a solution. So it's very important that you do take notes and write whatever it is that affects you personally. So the 7 major obstacles, we're just going to list them first, and then we're going to go through them individually. First is the body, mind, heart and soul's relationship with Allah. What are we doing incorrectly with these that's affecting our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our spiritual journey? What is it that's affecting us? Then our spiritual relationship with Allah. Where are we spiritually in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then major life problems that are distracting from Allah. Things that are occurring in our lives that are preventing us from the closeness of Allah. Unlawful wealth. What kind of work are we doing? What kind of rizq? How are we working? How are we providing for ourselves, for our family? And then martial problems that are distracting us. So between husband and wife, could be problems there that are taking us further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then relationships with other people such as parents, siblings, friends. As we know, this is just as important as our personal one-to-one relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our relationship with people, and especially the likes of our parents and siblings. And then finally, there's a 7th major obstacle. Can anyone guess what that is? Well, you all should be able to guess because you've been here before. Can anyone put their hand up and tell me what that is? The 7th. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 6. There's one more. Can anyone tell me what that is? What could be the 7? And this is one of the most important ones that can affect a person's spiritual journey. Does anyone know? Do I have to choose people? Come on, brother. Abdullah. No. The 7th major obstacle that can affect a person on a spiritual journey. Brother Adam? Yes, that's correct. Submission to the teacher. That's the final one, which we're going to go in detail, and it's one of the most important ones that affect a person's journey. So inshallah we'll start with the body, mind and heart. So how is your body's relationship with Allah? First and foremost, what I want to ask is, how can the body take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So brother, do you know how the body, what we can do with our body that can take us away, that could be a blockage to the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yep, cleanliness could be one. That is one. So I'll give you a clue. It's related to our organs. So can someone just briefly list the 7 organs to me, Brother Tisham? Quick fire.
Eyes is stomach, tongue, hands, feet and private parts.
Okay, mashallah. So in relation to these 7 organs, so we'll start firstly with the tongue. So just quickly, brothers can mention, how could our relationship worsen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by using our tongue? How can we be taken away from Allah ta'ala by the usage of our tongue? Any brother? Could put the hand up. Not Brother Cham, another one. Brother Fizan? Just say it on the mic so everyone can.
Backbiting.
Backbiting, yes. Any more from brothers at the back?
Lying.
Lying, yes. Anything from this side, brothers? Swearing, yeah. Now what I want you to do is to think, am I guilty of any of these sins? Is this something which is taking me away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Am I consistently doing this? And just make a little note. Is that something you need to improve on or not? So just have a little quick few seconds just to reflect and think, is there something here that I'm doing with my tongue that's taking me away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then the second one, eyes. How could we possibly use our eyes that could take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah, brother? Yeah, the one looking at me now, yeah.
Looking at unlawful things.
Yep, looking at unlawful things. That's quite vast. So if anyone else wants to give a specific thing, what could be unlawful? But Usman, do you want to say it on the mic?
Looking at dunyadari, worldly things too much.
MashaAllah, well put, MashaAllah. So I think brothers have got the idea there from Brother Usman's answer. But there's also another unlawful look. One is looking at dunyadari things, but one is also looking at people in a certain way. What can you do with your eyes when you can look at people in a certain way that could affect your relationship with Allah? One is looking at unlawful things, but how else can you look at people that could become unlawful and could actually harm the person? Yeah, as the brother mentioned, could you mention that again?
Jealousy.
Yeah, so looking in that way, sometimes we don't think about that we might be looking at something, admiring it, but really how are we looking at it? This is also something that affects the eyes, is the way we look at things. Someone might have a new car, we might be smiling and look at it, but really how are we looking at it? You know, we're looking at someone, their wealth, their health, how are we looking? Now see, are we having this sort of, is our eyes, are we looking in this certain manner as well? So write down, is that affecting you? Is it not affecting you? And then we go on to the ears. So how can now the ears take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you want to choose one from the back? Anyone from the back? No, anything come from there?
Listening to music.
Yep, that's correct. Anything else? Go on, Brother Sham, mashallah. Brother Sham's well awake today, mashallah.
Eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping, yep, listening to things that you shouldn't be listening to. Anything else? Another example? Any brothers from this side could give us an example? Sorry, Brother Tasif, I'm making you walk up and down. Anyone? Go on with Hamza, give us an example of something unlawful with the ears. Yeah, we're listening to people, someone backbiting. So if someone's backbiting to you, you're listening to it. Okay, so now think, does that affect you? Are you someone who enjoys listening to gossip? Are you someone who, likes to listen to music that's unlawful? So think, is that something that's affecting you? Is it something that's a habit? Write it down if it is, it's not. Then we've got the hands. So how can the hands be used in a way which takes away from Allah? Brother Majid, would you give us an answer?
Violence.
Violence, yes, harming others. Anything else?
Fraud.
Fraud, yeah. See, using the hands for fraud, we don't realize that. You know, that even though we might be doing fraud, we don't realize we might be using our hands to do it. That's still a sin with the hand as well. Anything else?
Touching our mahram.
Touching our mahram, yes. And any last one? Anything else any brother could think of?
Stealing.
Stealing. And there's one that people don't really think of that's also a sin of the hand, is selling haram products. Selling products itself haram, then using your hands to do that as well is also, you're sinful for that as well, because your hands are facilitating that, such as alcohol. People, if you're selling alcohol, one thing is sinful selling it, then the one thing is using your hands to do that as well. This is also sinful. So think, is your hands being used in any way which is taking away from Allah? And then the feet. Is there anything that we could do with the feet? Could anyone mention anything that you can do with the feet that could take you away from Allah? Come, Brother Hasnain. Oh, sorry, is there someone there? You can MashaAllah.
Stay away from haram. When you don't walk into the haram with the department of the fitna, just avoid that.
Yeah, could you give us some a bit more specific so people might understand?
For the market, if you see a lot of women they buy, just avoid them.
Yeah, MashaAllah, that's a good example. Any other brothers? Hasnain, go on. Is that the same one? That's a common thing that we all suffer from going into the market. So places that are unlawful, going to them places. You know, that's something we should try to refrain from. So any place that, you know, any place that your feet will take you, that'll make you not just violate your feet, the other organs as well. Your eyes, by going there, will be violated. Your hands, you'll commit zina, wrong with the hands. You know, you'll commit wrong with the tongue. So any place like that where your feet will take you is a place that will take you away from the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So think, is there any place that you go on a regular, that you usually attend, that you think, oh, I only go maybe for a social, I only go for a couple of minutes, but really in that couple of minutes, are you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So think about it, is there anything like that? And just note that down. And then finally, I think I'm probably one of the most guilty ones of this, is the stomach. How can we violate the stomach? Something we probably do every Friday night. Come on, Brother Fizal.
Overeating.
MashaAllah. There we go. I think many of us are guilty on this. So, you know, we should eat in the correctful manner and not to overeat, excessively eat. You know, like, you know, something that comes apparent in Taraweeh when everyone's excessively eaten. So something like this is something we need to refrain from. Do we do it? Do we not? That's something. Finally, modesty, the private area. Do we keep it? You know, actually, brothers, obviously one is the obvious one with the private area, but it's something that maybe not so obvious that people might not realize could prevent them from the closeness of Allah. Could anyone tell me that? Very simple, something very simple, but yet can be very harmful with our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
The cleanliness.
Cleanliness. Something which a lot of us, you know, we don't give much heed to it, we don't give much attention to it, yet it can affect us. For example, we may come out thinking we've cleaned, not really cleaned ourselves, not being careful of droplets. Come out to pray our salah, you know, do our intentions, but we're not even in wudu. We're not even clean, and then we expect to have a spiritual travel, or we expect our spiritual to travel in our salah spiritually, but ourselves we're not even clean because we couldn't take that extra 5 minutes in the bathroom to clean ourselves properly. So that's something we need to take about. It's very simple, yet can have such drastic measures as well. Okay, then from moving on from the body is now, how is our mind's relationship? Now, what does this mean, our mind? Can someone tell me what this means, our mind's relationship with Allah? How can our mind take us away from Allah?
The way you think, like thinking negative and stuff.
MashaAllah, yeah, that's correct. Anyone else would like to comment? No. So yeah, like Brother Usman mentioned, the mind's relationship. Do we entertain thoughts against Allah's commands? Do we think negative? You know, the thoughts that are coming from shaitan, do we entertain them? Or do we entertain the thoughts that are being inspired into our mind from the angels? Which ones do we entertain most? So that's something to think about. Do we think, and how you know is that thought, it takes you away from the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how you know that you've either entertained it or it's distracting you. Is that when you begin to think about it, you're completely out of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now you've become heedless of what's going on, your relationship with Allah, the presence, your duty. Some people think so much that they live in their thoughts. It becomes like a mini world for them. That they're in this little bubble and they're not in reality. You know, are we guilty of that? Are you guilty of that? So if you think you are, then it may be something to mention. Write it down so when you do see an ustad, you can review how you can deal with that. Another one. Do I think bad of other Muslims? Very straightforward. You know, do we think of them? Or do you have a negative approach to some people or good to others? Do we see others differently? Do we look down on others when we're looking at other brothers? That's something we need to think about. And does that affect us? How deeply does it affect us? And am I heedless of Allah's remembrance, and how often? So, you know, how often do we think about Allah? How does most of our day go? Does it go in the thought of Allah? Does it go in the thought of dunya? And how you really know if you're heedless is when you're in the places where you're less likely to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you think of Him at that time. For example, at work, when you're busy, when you're in a rush hour, that's the time you really know if you're heedless or not. So think about it, in the time when you're at work, in that 9 to 5 or whatever shifts you do, is Allah on your mind or is He not? When you're at the gym or when you're out with your friends socializing, Are you thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? That's something to think about. And most of the time, is it in the thought of Allah, or most of the time it's in the thought of the dunya? And then, do I practice more negative thinking or positive thinking? Could a brother give me an example of negative thinking? Any brother here? Brother Shimon?
Thinking everything's hard and
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. Seeing bad in a situation. And then could someone tell me a positive thinking? What positive thinking could be used?
That Allah will always help me.
Yeah. So how does our day go? You know, because the thing is, it's like, for example, someone could be living the hardest life, yet you always see a smile on their face. And now someone could have it really easy, but they always look depressed. And you're thinking, what's going on here? And it's just to do with the thinking. Just that in itself, a person might have very little, but just because of that positive thinking, it can change his whole feelings, his whole life. Whereas people who, you know, may have everything but think, oh, I have nothing. Really, why is that a bad thing? Can someone tell me why that's a bad thing? That you have Allah Ta'ala give you a house, shelter, home, yet you're still thinking, oh, I have nothing. How can that affect you? How can that negative thinking affect you? So basically what I was saying is that Allah Ta'ala may have given you everything, a house, a family, you know, good work, but you're still depressed. You're still saying, oh, I need this, why have I not got this, why have I not? How can that affect your relationship with Allah?
Because then you're thinking of negative things. Always say, you're not thinking about Allah.
Yeah, mashallah, that's a good answer. And what about the brother behind? What did he mention?
Being ungrateful.
Yeah, you know, you're being ungrateful. Okay, so think about it. What do you do more of? Do we do more negative? Do we do more positive? Then write it down. And then just out of 100%, how much is each one? So like in a percentage, however it's easier for you. That's just an example where you could do it as a percentage. Now, do I spend time in reflecting upon the creation? Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? When someone says, do you reflect over the creation, what does it mean? Could anyone tell me that?
It means that when you're spending more time thinking about Allah's creation, like stuff that doesn't really matter as well. Or it can also mean when you're thinking about good things about people.
Yeah, see, that's good, but then what do you do with that thought? What should that thought do for you? And how does it connect you to Allah?
It should make you remember Allah more when you think of the creation in a positive way.
MashaAllah, yeah. So basically, that reflection should bring you closer to Allah. That reflection, there should be a lesson in there for you. You know, it's like, for example, the sun. Yeah? It's so close, yet it does not burn us. Why? Look how Allah has made it. Such a thing which is so hot, yet it does not burn us. And the eye can look at it and tolerate it from this distance. And Allah has put it at such a distance where the eye can tolerate it to a certain extent. Then how the day changes to the night. You know, what's the less? How can we use that to bring us closer? Now the thing is, now it says, do you spend time reflecting? So do you use this to take lessons from? It's asking you that, or do you not? How often do you do that? So write it down. Is that something you do regularly? Is it something you do daily? Or is it something you don't do at all? Now, how is your heart's relationship with Allah? Now, what does this mean? Can someone explain what this means to me? The heart's relationship with Allah? Any brothers? I think everyone's a bit tired after the food. Brother Abbas, could you tell us? Brother Abbas here at the front. Just hear that. Your heart's, what does it mean by your heart's relationship with Allah?
Is it regarding your feelings?
Yeah, feelings. So, could someone give me an example of what Brother Abbas said? So, feelings, what could it mean in regards to feelings? But more specific than feelings, something else, more specific.
Sincerity in actions.
Yeah, mashallah. So sincerity. So are you doing things really for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's something that's in your heart. Or are you not? So another one example here, am I more humble or more arrogant? So when I'm in front of others, do I make myself look like I'm all high and mighty, I'm great, or do I put myself down? Do I try to show off that, oh, I'm better than you, or do I try to make the other person look better than myself? That's something you think, is that something that I'm affected by or not? Then another one, like we mentioned that example, am I more grateful or ungrateful? These are qualities. For the little I have, am I grateful or am I not grateful for it? Or do I keep on complaining and moaning that I need more and more? I don't have enough. Like for some people we see in Africa, water is just enough. But for people like myself, even we've got cars, house, family, still not enough. So are we being grateful or are we not? Something we to reflect about. And actually by just being grateful for what you have, little things, it actually increases your blessings more and more. That's how much of an amazing quality it is to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's such an amazing quality that by just doing it, by being grateful to Allah ta'ala increases you more and more in that. Am I more patient or more impatient? So on the onset, everyone sees me in the masjid, I'm nice and cool, but when you're at home with your siblings, with your missus, that tells you what you really like. When you come home and she's not cooked your food properly, what do? Or you come home and your siblings rob something from your room, what do? Do you be patient? Do you be impatient? So now, what are you most of the time? Reflect upon it. What happens with yourself? And is it something we need to work on, or is it something that we don't need to work on? So think about it and write it down. And there's one more example which is, mine were quite simple, but there's something which is a more greater example in regards to patience. Could someone probably elaborate on that? Something a bit more, I'll just give you a very simple example, something which is more complex and more sort of, you could say rewarding if you were to be patient in them times. Could someone give me an example? Tests, calamities. If a severe calamity overcomes you, such as for example in this pandemic, maybe people, they've lost work and different things maybe have happened, might have affected their finances, their home situations. A lot of things could have been affected. Now, how have you dealt with it? Have you put your trust in Allah? Or have you thought, oh, why is this happening to me? I need to do something, what's going on? Have we been patient with the situation? Have we carried on our relationship with Allah the way it was prior to that? When we had everything and we were grateful, are we still grateful even though it might be difficult? And then how often do I repent? And we've heard in the hadith that Rasulullah would repent so many times in the day, a numerous amount of times in the day. Now how often, and they did not even need to repent. So how often do we repent in the day? How often is the istighfar and in that mindset, how are we in the day? How often do we do that? Now we're going to look at the soul's relationship with Allah. So, how often 24 hours do I spend in the presence of Allah? So kind of be realistic with yourself now. Think to yourself, how often do I really, really think of Allah? And then, do I love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam more than my parents, spouse, children and myself? Now when we say, do I love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in this question, what do you think it means? When we mean in this sense, in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in our journey, spiritual journey, what does this really mean? Come on, Brother Shiban. Hold on, brother. It's more specific. Well, what does that mean, preference?
For other things.
Yeah, so basically, practically, we're talking about practical love, not just, singing a naat and saying it that, oh yes, and I love our Prophet. And, like the Mawlid's months come and we see the masjid's full and everyone's celebrating it, but that's not the real celebration. The celebration we're talking about is when you're following the sunnah. When everyone is going against the sunnah, are you still following the sunnah? Is it still something which, before everything, that's the first thing you look at is, You know, when people are saying, oh, how are you going to do your wedding? How are you going to dress up? Or, you know, what are you going to do when you go to work? Are you going to pray Salah? The first thing that comes into your mind is, how did Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam does it? Does that come into your mind? Or does it come into your mind that, oh, what my friend's going to think? Or what's my colleague's going to think? Or what's going to happen at work? So think, and you know, we have the scenario of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where he asked, first he said, I love myself. And then Rasul said, then if you love yourself, then and you do not love me greater than yourself, then you're not a true lover. And then only when he mentioned that he loved Rasul more than himself and everything else, only then was he identified as a true lover. And that's a lesson for us. That's a lesson for us. And what that means is, like Brother Shaban mentioned, that preference, i.e. when it comes to making a choice in our family, in our home, in our work, what do we base that choice on? On the way Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did it, or the way we just think under our mind and people's approval? So think, most of the time, how do we do that? And then, do I yearn to save Ummah from Jahannam, or am I always thinking about myself? So what this means, do I just sit in the corner doing my zikr, praying salah, and think, that's it, I'm going to be saved like this? Look at the seerah of Rasulullah. Is that all the Prophet did? Is that all our beloved Prophet did, was sit and do not just ibadat? How they went out, how they struggled. So do we do that? Do we reflect that sunnah or not? That's something we need to look at. Do we have that thought in our mind, in our heart, that feeling when we see people out there struggling? Or is the thought different? Or do we think, oh, look at them, look at the way they are, why they like this, why they like that? Or do we think, how can I support that person? How can I help? How can I save that person? If he's doing a sin, how can I save him? So think about it. What is it that we're more guilty of? And then write down, is that something which you struggle with? Is that something which, alhamdulillah, you know, you do well? And then a very important one. Am I a slave to my feelings, or my feelings my slave? Could someone give me an example of this, what this means? Anyone from this side, could they give me an example? Come on, brother.
Being weak to your desires.
Sorry, what's that?
Being weak to your desires.
Yeah, so could you give like a real life example? So how could that be in real life?
Female, cars, any materialistic thing that you want more than you should have or want to desire.
Yeah, mashallah. So like the brother saying, so Brother Usman, do you want to mention?
For example, you know, sometimes you might feel like you don't want to pray namaz.
Yeah.
But then don't give up to that. You should overcome it and pray.
MashaAllah, that's a very good example as well. That do we worship Allah just because we feel like it, just because everything's going our way, because everything's good? But when you go against, when your feeling doesn't feel like that, and you feel tired and you feel like you don't want to do anything, then do you still pray salah? So that's what it means by slave. Is it your feelings, is it your desires that are telling you to do everything, or are you telling your desires when and what you're going to do? You know, like for example, we go to work. You know, no one wants a 9 a.m. start. You ask anyone, do you enjoy a 9? Nobody enjoys a 9, especially in the winter days. No one wants to get out of the bed in the morning. You know, our feelings are totally against us, yet we still do it. So do we have this same mindset, this sort of process? Do we have the same thing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When it comes to Fajr Salah on a winter morning, do we have the same approach? Do we wake up on time? Do we get ready the way we get ready? Or do we wake up 5 minutes before, quickly rush, do our faraids, come back, pray namaz, check the time? You know, how do we do it? How do we do it? So that's something to think about. Is it the feelings, do they overtake me, or am I in control of my feelings? So write down if that's affecting you or if it's not affecting you. So now what we're going to do is, because we're here now to remove these obstacles. We're here now to get the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have the experience of the unseen. And if you're already experiencing, to improve that experience. So what we will do is, inshallah, make intention that we'll do 2 rakat salatul tawbah and beg Allah for forgiveness from the things that we know specifically affect us with our body, our mind, our heart and soul. We looked at it specifically in each detail and give examples so we know if that applies to us or not. Now you've written that. Now when you get the time, maybe before you sleep now, that do the 2 rakats Salat al-Tawbah and really seek forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala. Because if someone truly seeks forgiveness, it's as though they're a baby again. It's as though they're newborn. And that's how the mentality is, that now they're starting fresh again. And specifically ask Allah Ta'ala to help and to give you guidance and to give you the strength to overcome the problems that you have with these specific body parts or with the mind, the heart and soul. And then now we'll go on to the spiritual relationship, which we're just going to briefly touch on, because obviously this retreat you're going to go into more detail. So now just to think about, on what level are we spiritually connected in our journey, to our spiritual journey, in our ascension. Is it at the level of ilm al-yaqeen, where it's just with imagination, thought level? Are we at that stage? Are we struggling there? Or are we at the level of ayn al-yaqeen, where we're seeing, for example, I'll go into more example here. So ilm al-yaqeen, from a reliable source, so you've got knowledge about this thing. So when it comes to the ascensions, it's traveling with your thoughts, your imaginations. Are we on the level of ayn al-yaqeen? So it's as though we're watching something on TV. So it's like a spiritual journey is happening, but it's like it's a TV. And one sign that you're traveling is that it's things you're not imagining, them visions are coming themselves. It's not something that's in your mind, it's just appearing itself. So maybe it might be a scene which you could not imagine seeing in this real life, in this world. A scene of Jannat, maybe a scene of Jahannam, some sort of creature or thing that you think, where's this come from? So if you've never thought about it, then how can you bring that thought to your mind? Or it's happening itself without you entertaining, without you pushing it, that thing's coming itself in front of you. For example, like the TV, what's going on, you can't control the drama that's going on or anything, but you can experience it. So are you at this level? How can you improve? Do you want to improve from this? How are you going to improve from this level? And then the final one is basically haqq al-yaqeen. So that's another experience. So that's like, you say, one of the highest experience, where the raw experience and taste as though it's actually there. So how you are here now. So for example, imagine you're watching TV. That's ayn al-yaqeen. Then haqq al-yaqeen is, imagine being in that TV, being in that program. Like how everyone's watching Usman now. Everyone wants to be in that program. Everyone wants to be that person. It's like having that experience. Ertugrul. Everyone's experiencing that. Everyone wishes, I wish I was there. I wish I was part of that. So it's having that sort of experience, but in the spiritual world. So imagine in applying the spiritual realm, is that experience with, imagine actually feeling as though you're with Rasul. It's as though you're actually with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is something which, inshallah, those thoughts will explain in more detail as the weekend goes. And then another thing is major life problems. Now I just want to ask, how can major life problems take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can someone give me an example how a major life problem could take someone away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Come
A major life problem can take away from you. If someone suffer from depression.
Yeah, that's something that could take a person away. It could put someone down. It could make them, heedless of the thought of Allah Ta'ala. Brother Abdullah, I think he wanted to mention something.
If you become helpless in Allah.
Yeah, so you become hopeless in Allah. So you stop relying on Allah. You turn away, think, how's Allah Ta'ala, help me, look at my situation. Anything else that could be how a major problem can take someone away?
Say like if you get like divorced or something, or like if like something happens to you, like a calamity.
Yeah, basically a calamity. Now I want you to think, how can that calamity become a blessing for you? How could that calamity, that difficult situation, that becoming depressed or having a major family divorce or something like this, where something really drastic, how can that can make you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can that bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Maybe thinking like what was happening for a reason.
Yeah. So relating it maybe back to Allah Ta'ala. Yeah, mashallah.
I suppose part of the test is turning to Allah for help. That's where your mind is also getting stronger, where you can go the opposite ways, where you can lose your mind by not going to Allah and going the opposite way.
MashaAllah. So beautifully explained. So when this calamity comes, is it taking you closer to Allah? Is it making you become more humble and making you prostrate and turn into the mercy of Allah? Is it turning you to the mercy of Allah, or is it making you think, why is this happening to me? What's going on? Is it taking you away from the masjid? Is it taking you away from Allah and His friends? from Rasul? Are you turning back to the seerah and saying, how did Rasul Sallam deal with this problem? And make you feel like, look, I'm going through an experience like the Sahaba, and it brings you closer to them. Or is it taking you away and thinking, why is this happening? So that's something, right? Two major life from that is that could be affecting you like this. That when these things occurred or it's occurring, it is stopping you from thinking about Allah, it's stopping you from the closeness of Allah. And just write them down. And like we mentioned, in a way we kind of mentioned a solution, that how can that now then become something for you that can bring you closer to Allah. Write that down in brief note form. But don't worry, if right now if you can't think of this, don't worry about this. Really it's just identifying the issues, because this is what the ustads are here, this is what this weekend is here for, is to deal with these issues, is to overcome them, is to have the support for them as well. So don't worry too much if you can't think of the solutions. So that's why you're writing it, so when you do sit with those ustads, you can discuss these things and inshallah come to some sort of a solution. So yeah, so if you can, write down a solution. If you're struggling to think of one, then inshallah don't worry, inshallah you can see an ustad, inshallah that will support. So as I said, today you will do 2 rakat salatul hajat and beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to resolve these problems. So when you're going to inshallah after this, before you go sleep, do fresh wudu, which is sunnah, to go sleep before you go sleep, and maybe do 2 rakat salatul tawbah, 2 rakat salatul hajat, and basically seek and from Allah ta'ala to ask you to solve these problems, to give you the solution, to provide that solution for you. You're in His house, so that's already one step there. You're already one step there for your solution. Now it's actually seeking the people here that can help you and give you that solution to His closeness. And then, are you earning wealth in any haram ways? So think about that. So for example, are you going out there, are you selling haram products? Are you defrauding people? One of the things which is very common, people don't think is wrong, benefit fraud. Are you robbing money from the government? Are you making your wealth like this? So think about these things. Are these affecting you or not? Then are you spending wealth in any haram way? So one thing's earning it the wrong, but are you spending it in the wrong way? Are you not fulfilling the rights of the people who are in your home? Your mother, your siblings, the people who are dependent upon you? Or are you just going out partying, chilling, spending it on yourself? And then write down a solution for each one. So if this is affecting you, think of a way, maybe how can you resolve this for yourself? How can you resolve this? And then when you do 2 rakat salatul hajat, in that you can also ask Allah to give you a way out. If you're stuck in a situation, if maybe you do want to get out, but that lifestyle you're in, or the people you're around, the environment, is a very difficult circle, a vicious circle which you're struggling with. This is the time now to seek and ask Allah to bring you out of that circle, to bring you out of that place, to bring you out of that environment, to give you the ability to turn away from that haram money. And now martial problems. This is normally a tough one. So are you going through a major issue of marriage that is distracting you from Allah? First of all, ask, are you the problem? That's the first thing. Before you think, what is she doing to me? Think, or he's doing to me, think, are you the problem first and foremost? Is there something you're doing? That's what we're talking about here. What is it you can do to improve that relationship? Not as what the other spouse needs to do, but what yourself can do. So think, is there something there that you're doing that's taking away from Allah Ta'ala? Because you're going to be asked about what you did, and she's going to be asked about, you're not going to be asked what she did to you. You're going to be, what did you do to her? What rights did you fulfill her rights? Or did you fulfill his rights or not? That's something you're going to be accountable for. I'm going to be accountable for. So think about that. And then think, and many of us know what our problem is. We know what we're doing wrong. Just sometimes it's hard to admit it because we feel like we're this alpha person, or we're this, we're the man of the house. But if you're wrong, you're wrong. In the sight of Allah, if you're wrong, then it's wrong. Allah is the judge, not you. So think about, is there a solution there? Is there something you can do? If not, then here you are today to seek that solution. Here's your opportunity today to seek that solution. And when you pray Salatul Hajat, this might be a long Salatul Hajat dua, but believe me, it'll be something which will make a difference. These dua rakat nafil, they're there for a reason. And when you do it, you'll see the difference. You'll see the change begin to happen. But it's your job to do it. You've got to turn to Allah first. And then now, relationship with parents, siblings, friends, colleagues. Are you going through any major issues in any of these relationships that are distracting you from Allah? Think about that, reflect upon that. With your parents, how are you treating your parents? Are you giving them the respect that is due to them or not? You know, think about it. If we can't have a close relationship with those who are close to us, then how do we expect to get the closeness of Allah? And then write down a solution for each person. So whoever it is specifically, write down a specific solution or something there that, you know what, specifically if I do this with this person, it will change, it will bring me closer to Allah. And then same again, 2 rakat salatul hajat, and seek Allah Ta'ala. Seek Allah Ta'ala to help you in this situation. And now finally, this is why it's at the end, because this is the most important point, especially over this weekend. That have you really submitted to the teacher? And what this means is, are you really come here with a clear mind, with a clear thought, that whatever I learn today, I'm going to act upon it? If you look, for example, the Sahaba of the example of the Sahaba, why were they such great examples? Because whatever Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, whatever they told them to do, they just did it. They followed. They didn't ask questions why, who, what, when. They did. And that is why they benefit. So when we have this same mentality that the Sahaba did, here, and follow the teacher with the instructions how to do things, whatever guidance they give us, that is when we can really truly ascend and benefit, because really they're like your burak in the spiritual journey. They're the one who are going to allow it. Through them is how you're going to travel. So for example, if you want to walk, you've not got your feet, you've not got your legs, how are you going to walk? If you want to drive a car, you've not got hands, you've not got arms, how are you going to drive? It's impossible, more or less. So in the spiritual world, your teacher is like that. He is like your feet that are going to allow you to walk. He is like your hands who are going to allow you to interact. If you want to draw something and you don't have eyesight, how are you going to draw? He is the one who's going to make that vision clear for you in the spiritual realm. So if you cannot submit to the one who's going to take you to the closeness of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and if you cannot follow the teacher's teaching, then what makes you think when you're in the presence of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that you're going to submit to the teaching of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? And imagine that if you cannot even follow the teacher, then disobeying Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the spiritual realm. So think about, is that something you want to do? Is come here, have this experience. So first and foremost is practically, you need to be able to do that with your teacher. Be able to submit. And to the reason one of the Mashaykhs mentioned that for you to visualize and see the spiritual realms, you need to close the physical eyes for the spiritual eyes to open. Now what that means is, one is to not look at them things that are going to distract you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, is that to follow blindly the one who is taking you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To only listen and be aware of what they are telling you to do, and what's around you, to ignore that. And if you can follow this key and apply this in this weekend, on this weekend, you will see how your spiritual journey will rocket. It will rocket through the roof, inshallah. So this is one of the most important, like it says here, focus on the teacher fully, following their teachings, guidance and instruction on the spiritual path wholeheartedly, respecting all others but following one teacher only. So do respect, it's not respect other teachers, but really your heart should, and the teachings that you follow specifically to yourself should only be from the teacher. And then to love and eager to be in their company. If you looked at the Sahaba, any moment they could get with Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was like a moment in Jannah. It's like, people want to be around celebrities all the time. They might not even notice them, but the fact that they're around them is good enough for them. And they'll brag that, I was with this celebrity. They're probably a mile away, and they took a selfie a mile away, but it becomes such a big thing for them. This is how our love should be for the teacher. Someone who actually cares about us. These people don't even care about us. They're just satisfying their own nafs and you're enjoying it. The teachers come here to allow your nafs to have pleasure, but eternal pleasure. They're going through the sacrifice for you to have eternal pleasure. It's like one picture I seen the other day where it showed a wolf in the snow, and he was struggling to get through the snow, and behind him was the pack. And it's saying that the followers don't know what the leader's doing for their path, for them to have that, for them to travel that journey. We don't, and that's a true leader. That's a true leader. That they're struggling just to make it easier for us, but we don't see that. We only see that easy path, and this is what this journey is like for us. Alhamdulillah, it's all been set out. All we have to do is follow, but we don't know what extent they're going to, what love they have for us. So if we just submit to these teachings, just by submitting and coming in wholeheartedly with an empty mind, that whatever, like we hear in the majlis all the time, come with an empty mind, come like an empty cup, so it can be filled with the teaching and the love of the teacher, then you will see your difference in your spiritual realm, how you will experience many, many different realms and higher realms, inshallah. So here, just to briefly go over the 7 major obstacles, just a quick overview. So we went over the body, mind, heart and soul's relationship with Allah. Then we looked at our spiritual relationship with Allah. Major life problems that are distracting us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unlawful wealth distracting from Allah. Martial problems distracting us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And relationship with parents, siblings, friends, colleagues and that are distracting us from Allah. And basically, if you know the solution yourself, well and good. Write it down and make intention that now I'm going to practically solve this. Not just talk about it, not just be wishful, but practice. Because now you've got a reason why, because you want the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else in this world is greater than that? What once you pass, what is that? The real life starts at death, not in this place. So that's something we need to think about. What do we want after death? So make that practical solution now. What am I going to do? If you know, then write it down. Put it somewhere where you can see it every day, so you can begin to follow that. And your spiritual relationship with Allah, spiritually, and then your major life problems and all of these things. But now if you can't, if you're struggling to find a solution, then this is where you get the time here over this weekend to see an Ustad, and don't be shy about it. This is what we're here for. We're here to improve ourselves, to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're not going to speak about it, if you're not going to speak to someone about the problem, how are you going to get a solution? And when it comes to financial problems, we speak to everyone who we can, every professional in the world. So when it comes to our problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, relationship with Allah, why are we not speaking to the right people? Imagine, when we go for an interview, imagine right now you're going for a job interview, right? You dress up smart, you've got all these clothes, everything, you're looking fine. Now on the way there, imagine, your foot went into a puddle and mud went over your clothes. What's going to go through your mind then? At that time for that interview, you become so restless and so, you become so afraid of what's going to happen. Look how they're going to look at me. We're not even bothered what's going to come out of our mouth. Just because of that little stain on our clothes, we don't think, how are they going to even look at me? I'm not even going to get the job on this. We're not going to get the job because of this. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is it we so easily sin? And we don't care, how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to look at me? So don't be ashamed. Speak, get the solution. Find the solution. And this is what this whole weekend is there for you, to improve your relationship. So inshallah, make sure you keep these notes with you. And finally, and most importantly, is submission. Like I said, without the that is like, if you've got beautiful lights here, you've got beautiful lights, you've got a plug, everything, the room's really nice, but there's no source, there's no light, there's no connection. You can press the button as much as you want on the light, it's never going to come on. And that's the same with the spiritual relation, the spiritual travel. If you're not connected to the Mashaykh wholeheartedly, then no matter how much you do the methodology, no matter how much ibadat you do, you will not see and taste. You've got to have the full connection. You can't have faulty wires. It's not going to work. You're just going to get flickers. If you need some wires loose and you get flickers, the light doesn't come on properly. So that's what your spiritual experience is going to be like. It's going to be flickering. But if you've got a strong connection to the main source, then inshallah you will see how your spiritual journey will come clear to you. So inshallah, So make intention, Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala gives us the ability and gives us the opportunity to change and make a difference. And if anything I've said good, then that's what I think I said wrong, then please forgive me. Subhanakallah wa shukran, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Jazakallah khair, Ustaz Siraj. Thank you very much. Inshallah, now this brings the end to today's program. We rather have a short rest time before we get to, for the first time, practice the muraqabah barzakh at 3 o'clock. So inshallah, you will get proper sleep or slightly longer sleep after Fajr. So now it's more of a rest time until 2:45, at which point you need to be up and ready to come downstairs for a start at 3 a.m. So 3 a.m. you need to be back in this hall, ready to start the muraqabah barzakh, inshallah. And so please use this time right now to make sure that you're asleep and try your best to get as much rest as possible, and then you're fresh for the muraqabah, inshallah.
They should be ready at 2:55.
Okay.
Yeah, because the session will start.
Okay. Sorry, correction is you should be here ready to start at 2:55 because we need to be live at 3 a.m. So inshallah, please just bear in mind that if you are delayed or anything, it affects everyone else as well. So just out of respect, as we mentioned, the commitment is to be there as well. That you are. If you need to wake up earlier, then do so that you can be here 2:55, inshallah. Before, yeah. And as mentioned, the preparation for the muraqabah, that you should offer 2 rakat salatul hajjah before. So if you could do that, inshallah, as well. So that means that just manage your time. You're all adults, but you need to be here 2:55, please. Jazakallah khair.